Before I even get into the video, if you could drop a like on the video right now, that would be much appreciated. It really helps out a lot and changes how the video does, so that would be appreciated. Also, subbing to the channel would be nice. Try and hit 10k by the end of the month, so if you could do that as well. I make content like this like 6 to 7 times a week, so doing that really helps and it would be appreciated. Other than that, let's get into the video. Stephen Curry is the greatest shooter of all time, arguably the best player in the NBA, which I've already talked about. Feel free to check out that video if you want. But today we are more here to talk about Steph Curry's legacy as a whole, because I think as time goes on, I think his impact is beginning to be undermined by people who truly don't understand what he does, outside of hitting threes at a rate that we've never seen before and we may never see again. I mean, sure, there's probably going to be people break his three-point records as people come into the league and average 15 attempts a game from the get-go, but can we take a moment to recognize over the course of an 11-year career, up until this year, a career that had spanned 694 games, not once did his three-point percentage drop below 41 for a season. Players can earn enough money for their lifetime just off one season where they shoot 40% from three, and Curry hasn't gone below that once in an 11-year career spanning up until this year, where he played like 5 games and was injured, so that doesn't really count. We know he would have eventually ended above 40%. That's just a given at this point in his career. It's just a given at this point in time. Not to mention nearly half of these seasons saw him shoot over 44% from deep. Keep in mind, this is someone that shoots multiple shots a game from beyond 30 feet. Someone that chucks up Hail Marys from half court at the end of the quarters and halves. Your favorite player doesn't take those Hail Marys at the buzzer because they're afraid of what it'll do to their shooting percentage. Curry could be in a shooting slump, and we've seen it before, and he'll still chuck up a Hail Mary. He doesn't care because he knows it's a chance that otherwise just wouldn't be there to get extra points. And although the numbers are clearly stacked against him, even someone as good as him, he just chucks it up anyway because what's there to lose, really, apart from your shooting percentages? But he doesn't care because he's so good that it doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm getting off topic there. You can only imagine how high his shooting percentage would be if he was more concerned about keeping it at a high percent like other players, but he has so much confidence and would rather hit 1 in 30 half-court shots or take 10 shots off the dribble from beyond 30 feet because he just knows he's capable of doing so, and he knows it really helps his team, that he's not bothered about his shooting percentages, and we can only imagine how high they would be if it was just catch and shoot shooting numbers, because we've seen those numbers, they're ridiculous. But I know you're asking, how could a 2-times MVP become underrated? Good question, because before KD joined, Steph was seen as the best player on the Warriors, and rightfully so. He had led that team to a championship in 2015 and was robbed of a finals MVP. Not only should he have won in 2015, but also 2018 in my opinion, and he was the best player on a team that went 73-9 and took LeBron and a strong Cavs team to 7 games. Now, regardless of how you think about the Warriors losing after leading 3-1, that was a healthy Cavs team, and a lot of things went wrong for Golden State. I'm not saying Curry played perfectly, but he was injured, Bogut was injured, and Draymond got suspended. I mean, the Cavs had bad luck in 2015 as well, so it evens out in a way, but you can't just say they blew a lead without taking into account Draymond's getting injured, Bogut getting injured, Curry being injured, and those things being pretty important factors in the reason they lost that lead. Now, getting back to why the finals MVPs were important is because Curry was without a doubt the best player on the Warriors, and I respect how Iggy played, but it just wasn't close, and that'll go down as one of the worst finals MVP calls in NBA history. And then 2018 was a bit closer, but Steph was the better player in 3 of the 4 games, and in a 4-game sweep, you can view the games as just about equal. I don't see how one would have more weight than the other. Maybe the first game and the third game, but Curry was the clear better player in the first, and Durant was the better player in the third. And then Curry had 2 and 4 covered. We don't need to go into specifics. He was the better player throughout that series as well. So he should have 2 finals MVP awards that he missed out on. And these are going to be huge when determining his legacy down the line, because in my opinion, he could have a chance to be a top 5, top 8 player of all time. But you have guys like Bird, Magic, Duncan, Kobe, Shaq, who have all won multiple finals MVPs, and people will be quick to disregard how Steph should have had 2 and then could have won a 3rd against the Raptors if Clay didn't get hurt. That's a hypothetical. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about the 2 that he should have won. People are going to disregard that over time because we know people are just going to do that. The easy argument's just going to be, oh, he had 0 finals MVPs. He just wasn't a finals player, which is completely false. And that's going to go against his narrative. Now, back to the point why I think a 4th ring means so much. Who else has 4 rings? Yes, LeBron James. Someone that people never even wanted to put in the same sentence as Steph. But now we have a chance to see what Steph can do with a team that doesn't have a fellow top 3 to 5 player in the league like LeBron does with Anthony Davis. And people can't just say, oh, Steph has a clearly better team. Because apparently Draymond's washed, Clay's coming off an ACL, Steph's been injured, and they don't really have anyone else. Wiggins is overpaid. These are all things that everyone else said about this team, so you can't just say, oh, well, Draymond's good now, he's an all-star player, Clay's an all-star. When you just called him washed, you said Clay was coming off an injury. This is the stuff that irks me, because when they were a super team, when they were seen as a super team, people said Draymond was a role player, but then when they wanted to discredit Curry, he was a fantastic player. So I don't really know where they're coming from, but that's just hypocritical at its finest. Let's just continue to move on. But Curry doesn't have that clearly talented team over teams like the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nets. They're all a pretty level playing field. Even the Nuggets, all these teams are pretty level at the point in time. So it's going to come down to your best player delivering and your best player outperforming the other team's best player, like it so often does in these kind of situations. And that's where I think the fourth ring could really elevate his playing status and really put him in that conversation with a number of other people. Well, you've got guys with 5 championships like Kobe, like Magic, who are at the moment ahead of Steph, but if he can win another championship, he's fourth, and be the best player in a championship team for the 3rd time in his career, you just have to at least put him in that category. Whether you want to put him at the same level, that's yet to be seen, but you have to put him in the same category as those guys, because that's 4 rings, and it would be 3 occasions where he's the best player in the finals. I imagine, like, that's just assuming that he is the best player in the team during the finals, which I think most of us would expect if they do win, but that would definitely warrant him being in the same conversation as those guys, something he's currently not in. But we also have to talk about how people don't see Steph's rings in the same light as other players because of KD, but he just can't help that. He was the man responsible for defeating Durant. This is me, a very big Kevin Durant fan. He was the man responsible for leading a team to a championship in 2015 and falling just short in 2016. Now, who are we to say the Warriors wouldn't have won at least one championship over the next 3 years? I would have almost guaranteed one championship over the span of 2017 to 2019. Like we said, it took a catastrophic collapse, which everyone wants to talk about, how it was such a collapse. Well, the Warriors were going to go again. There's no reason to say they wouldn't have been another 70-win team the next year. Instead of having Kevin Durant, they would have had more role players. They would have been able to fill in the holes. They still would have been a fantastic team. Obviously, they wouldn't have won the championship with such ease, but we know they would have been at least a chance at winning a championship, and I can pretty much guarantee over the course of 3 years, 2 of which they won a championship with KD, they would have won at least one championship. So let's not use that completely against him. Someone who did win a championship before KD even came, and was still a fantastic player when KD came, and was still incredibly impactful. I think the easy and lazy argument that a lot of people use in terms of not putting Steph in the same category as Magic, as Kobe, as those other time legends, is, well, he won the 1 ring, he then collapsed a 3-1 lead, which he was injured. Like I mentioned, there were a few other factors. Coming from someone that's not a Warriors fan, not a Curry stan, I don't really care that much. Then in 2017, Durant comes. 2018, Curry's the best player in the playoffs. 2019, he's arguably the best player in the playoffs as well. They lose Durant and Klay Thompson, so they're then left with Draymond Green, who apparently isn't an all-star level player. I'm not saying whether he is or not, but that's what everyone wanted to say. So they're left with Draymond and just a bunch of role players who just really weren't that good at that point in time. So it was just those 2 players, and Curry still put up a great effort against the Toronto Raptors in Game 6 of the finals. But those are the kind of circumstances that people just like to disregard when it comes to Steph Curry, and they like to use it when it comes to other players. I don't know why it is. I don't know if it's because they think he just had an easy road to winning these championships or not. And he was clearly an incredibly impactful player that I think if he wins a 4th championship, when you have guys like LeBron teaming up with Anthony Davis, arguably 2 of the 3 best players in the league. You've got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, potentially another superstar coming to Brooklyn. You've got the Milwaukee Bucks, you've got the Dallas Mavericks, you've got the Denver Nuggets, you've got all these teams that are going to be incredibly good. Even the LA Clippers still have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and Curry is left with someone coming off an injury, he himself coming off an injury, and Draymond Green, who is apparently regressing. So if he were to win a championship here, what's to say this championship isn't as impressive as a LeBron championship in 2016 when he came back from that deficit? That's the kind of championship we're looking at, and that's why a 4th ring would be so impactful to his legacy, because it would undoubtedly show that he can carry a team to a championship and he's not a product of his environment. I think he is the environment, and everyone else around him is more of a product of their environment as opposed to him, because he's the one that sets the scene, he's the one that creates the movement off the ball, he's the one that creates the open looks by his 3-point shooting, he's the one that makes the shots, he's the one that makes the shots in the clutch time, which he has done time in and time out. He's a very solid playmaker, he's the one that makes all of this environment work, and he's the man behind it. He's the catalyst, not other people, he's the catalyst behind it. So In terms of the Warriors, though, as a whole, this isn't just about Curry. You've got other players like Draymond who would also really benefit from a fourth ring. Klay Thompson as well. That really elevates his status, makes him and Steph arguably the best backcourt of all time if they aren't already, and it just shows how good the rest of the players are as well. I know I've just said, well, Steph would be doing this by himself, but obviously he wouldn't. It's just to show you can't say Steph has all the help in the world and then say Draymond and Klay suck. That's an argument that so many people use, but they don't realize how much they're contradicting themselves by doing so. So that's why I just thought I'd point that out. But I think Steph would still be doing this with less help than a lot of other teams in the league, particularly when you look at his direct rival LeBron James, who has Anthony Davis. Like Anthony Davis, let's get that clear. No one on the Warriors team is going to come close to being as impactful as AD. Let's just make that very obvious. So if he wins it, it's going to be incredibly impressive, particularly when the Lakers are making moves like bringing in Dennis Schroeder, a very astute move, and so they're going to look to bolster their squad even more. They're going to be a very hard team to beat. So if he can do so, you better put a bit more respect on his name than people are already giving him. Other than that, I don't really know what else to say. I just thought this would be a video where I talk about how a fourth ring could really change the legacy of Curry, because he'll go from a player that's in that kind of middle of the pack where you can put a number of players around him to someone that carried a team that's probably less talented than a number of teams to a fourth ring and looks like the best player on a team for the third time. Not a lot of players have ever been able to do that in history, so he would be putting his name in the very elite company. So to do that, he would really elevate his status and really put himself in that GOAT point guard kind of consideration, and really put himself in that top 5 player of all time consideration if he continues on the pace he does, which is something else that we need to talk about. He's shooting at a level we've never seen. He's playing a role that we've never seen, so who's to say he can't play till he's 40? I mean, Kyle Korver's 40 and still knocking down threes. JJ Redick's like 36, and they're not even in the same stratosphere in terms of how good they are. So Curry could easily play till he's 40 and probably give you 20 points a night in doing so. That's just something that he can do if he chooses to do so, similar to what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did. That's the kind of level we're talking about. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say. If you did enjoy the video and if you made it to the end of the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. Other than that, I'll catch you next time. Bye.